The sound of forks and wine glasses filled the room like background music to humiliation. My father, Richard Moore, sat at the head of the long dining table, shoulders squared like a king addressing his court. His words sliced through the chatter. "To success," he declared, raising his glass toward my older sister, Emily. "To the daughter, who actually made something of herself." Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos? And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. The room erupted in applause. Uncles, aunts, family, friends, everyone clapped like trained seals. Emily smiled modestly, pretending to be humble while basking in the spotlight. I sat 2 seats away, forcing a smile that barely held. My heart thudded in my chest, but I kept my posture straight, calm, silent. Dad's eyes flicked toward me. "You could learn a thing or two from your sister, Lily," he said with a chuckle. "You're still finding yourself, right?" The laughter that followed burned. Even Mom didn't defend me. She just lowered her eyes and sipped her wine. I wanted to scream, to remind him that finding myself had meant sleepless nights, rejection emails, and every ounce of determination I'd ever had. But what was the point? They'd never seen me for who I was, only who I wasn't. "Don't look so serious," Emily teased, smirking. "You'll get there someday." "Yeah," Dad said, grinning at her. "When pigs fly." More laughter. I clenched my jaw, keeping my face still. Years of being the overlooked daughter had taught me one thing: silence could be louder than rage. Then, like fate had perfect timing, the flat-screen TV behind Dad flickered on. The headline in bold red letters froze everyone mid-laugh. Breaking news: local tech giant Moore Dynamics officially acquired by rising innovator Lily Moore. The sound of applause died instantly. Wine glasses froze halfway to lips. Every eye turned to me. Emily's jaw dropped. "Wait, what?" Dad blinked, looking from the TV to me, as if trying to process the words. "What kind of joke is this?" I set my napkin down carefully. "Not a joke," I said softly. "I finalized the acquisition this morning." He laughed, short, disbelieving. "You? You bought my company?" I met his gaze steadily. "No, Dad. I saved it. You were about to lose everything." The air felt heavy, thick with disbelief. My father's face turned pale, his pride cracking in front of everyone. Emily shifted uncomfortably, her confidence evaporating. The only sound in the room was the faint hum of the news anchor continuing. "Industry analysts are calling this one of the boldest business moves of the year by the 29-year-old entrepreneur." Dad's voice came out in a whisper. "You did this behind my back?" I leaned back, calm now. "You told me I'd never match my sister's success. I guess I took that personally." The table stayed frozen, forks idle, mouths half open, faces blank. And for the first time in my life, the silence belonged to me. Dad's shocked face replayed in my mind all night like a film stuck on loop. His disbelief, his silence, it was everything I'd once dreamed of. But it hadn't come easy. Nothing ever did for me. The truth was, while Emily had boardrooms handed to her on silver trays, I had empty notebooks, sleepless nights, and doors slammed in my face. 3 years ago, I was living in a small one-bedroom apartment above a laundromat in Portland. The air smelled like detergent and regret, and every night I'd sit by my tiny desk, coding prototypes until my eyes burned. I was working for a startup back then, a company that treated me like a coffee-fetching intern despite my ideas. I remember presenting a concept once, a system that would revolutionize how small businesses tracked inventory using predictive AI. My manager laughed and said, "Ambitious idea, Lily. But maybe stick to testing instead." That night, I quit. No plan. No savings. Just raw determination and a laptop that overheated every 15 minutes. I started freelancing, writing code for whoever would pay, saving every dollar I could. And slowly, painfully, I began building what would become Aurea Technologies, a project I told no one about. My only ally back then was Evan, my college friend, and the only person who didn't think I was crazy. He was quiet, sharp, and loyal in a way that made silence comforting. We'd sit in that small apartment for hours, brainstorming, designing, dreaming. "You know what your problem is, Lily," he said one night, his voice soft but steady. "You think you need to prove something to your dad." "I don't," I said, typing furiously. "I just need to prove something to myself." He smiled. "Then let's make sure the whole world sees it when you do." And we did. For 2 years, I built Aurea in secret. I learned how to pitch investors, how to negotiate, how to survive on instant noodles, and 4 hours of sleep. Every rejection email only fueled me more. When I finally landed my first investor meeting, I wore my sister's old blazer, too tight around the shoulders but professional enough to hide the nerves. The investor, a middle-aged woman named Grace Nolan, looked me straight in the eye after I finished my pitch. "You remind me of myself 20 years ago," she said. "Hungry, sharp, tired of being underestimated." She invested $400,000. That night, I didn't celebrate. I worked. I hired 2 engineers, expanded our prototype, and launched a beta version. Within 6 months, Aurea was making headlines as the company using AI to predict market trends for small and mid-sized businesses. Still, I kept my name out of the spotlight. I didn't want my father finding out, at least, not until it was too late for him to interfere. Then came the moment that changed everything. I was reading an article about Sterling Tech, Dad's company. Their profits were plummeting. Old systems, outdated leadership, and too much pride to evolve. And I knew what I had to do. Evan thought I was joking at first. "You want to buy your dad's company?" I leaned back, eyes fixed on the glowing monitor. "No. I want to save it. From him." It took months of negotiation, disguised through subsidiaries and shell firms to keep my name hidden. I was careful, strategic. Every deal, every clause, every number meticulously planned. Until finally, last week, the last signature went through. Aurea Technologies acquired Sterling Tech, the empire my father built, the same one he said I'd never be good enough for, was now mine. When the acquisition hit the news that night at dinner, I saw my family for who they really were, people who had never expected me to stand tall. And yet, part of me didn't feel victorious. There was satisfaction, yes, but beneath it, something heavier. Because when you spend years fighting to prove your worth, you forget what peace feels like. I remembered those nights in that small apartment when I'd cry silently, praying that someday I'd matter enough to be heard. That someone anyone would notice. And now that they had, it didn't feel the way I thought it would. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing, reporters, business partners, congratulatory messages. My name was everywhere. But the only call I waited for was Dad's. It came around noon. The screen flashed Dad. I hesitated before answering. "Hello." His voice was cold, clipped. "You've humiliated me." "No, Dad," I said calmly. "You humiliated yourself years ago when you told me I'd never be enough. This isn't how business is done, Lily. You went behind my back, made a fool of this family." I exhaled slowly. "Funny. That's exactly what you said when I wanted to start my own company. Guess I just stayed consistent." He was silent for a few seconds, then said, "You've made powerful enemies." "Then I'll face them," I replied. "Like you taught me, just not the way you expected." And I ended the call. That night, as I sat in my office overlooking the city lights, I thought of Emily. How easy everything had always been for her, how proud Dad looked when she spoke, how invisible I used to feel beside her. But not anymore. Because that same invisibility had been my shield. While they looked past me, I built something they couldn't ignore. And the irony? I didn't destroy my father's legacy, I revived it. I just removed the one thing holding it back, his pride. As I shut my laptop and leaned back, the city hummed below, a symphony of ambition and noise. And I finally allowed myself to smile. They had spent years underestimating me. Now they'd spent the rest of their lives answering to me. The next Monday morning, the glass doors of Sterling Tech opened to a silence that didn't belong there. Every employee could feel it, the tension, the disbelief, the quiet buzz of gossip rippling through the halls. I walked in wearing a black tailored suit, hair tied back, calm as the eye of a storm. Security nodded at me now, not as the daughter, but as the owner. Every step toward the top floor echoed through the marble lobby like a reminder. The woman they dismissed now ran the empire they worshipped. When I reached the boardroom, the atmosphere shifted. The people who had once ignored me were now standing in uncertainty. My father sat at the far end, rigid, his knuckles white against the table. Emily sat beside him, pretending to look composed, though her trembling hands betrayed her. "Good morning," I said evenly, placing a stack of documents on the table. "I think we should get started." The executives exchanged nervous glances. The same men who once laughed off my ideas now waited for my approval to breathe. Dad cleared his throat. "Before we proceed, I want to make one thing clear," he said, forcing his voice into authority. "I may no longer own controlling shares, but I built this company from the ground up. That deserves respect." I met his eyes, and I earned mine by saving it from collapse. He flinched just slightly. I could see it, the crack in his armor. One of the board members, Mr. Lang, spoke hesitantly. "Ms. Moore, with all due respect, the acquisition shocked everyone. Could you explain your intentions for Sterling Tech?" I smiled faintly. "Of course. My intention is simple, to modernize it, to make it relevant again. No more nepotism, no more outdated systems. We're starting from zero." Emily scoffed. "You think you could just walk in here and erase everything Dad built?" I turned to her, my tone calm but sharp. "I'm not erasing it, Emily. I'm rebuilding it. Difference is, I'm doing it without arrogance." Her face reddened. "You wouldn't even have the resources to buy this place if it weren't for our last name." I stepped closer, my voice low and deliberate. "You're right. I used that last name, the same one that locked me out of this company, to walk through every door that used to be slammed in my face. I learned how to use it better than either of you ever did." The room fell silent. Even Dad's pride seemed to falter. I clicked the remote, and the screen behind me lit up with slides showing Sterling Tech's recent decline, financial charts, missed contracts, failed innovations. The data spoke louder than I ever could. "This is what I inherited," I said firmly. "A company drowning in its own ego. You all got comfortable watching it sink." A murmur spread across the table. My father's jaw tightened. "You talk like you're better than everyone here." I met his stare head-on. "No. I talk like someone who stopped believing your version of success." He slammed his fist against the table. "You think this is some kind of victory? You embarrassed your family in front of the whole city." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. "You did that when you made me the family joke." The silence that followed was brutal. I walked toward the window, the skyline stretching endlessly outside. "For years, I wanted to earn your approval," I said softly. "But now I realize, what I wanted wasn't your pride. It was your respect, and I don't need it anymore." When I turned back, I saw something I never thought I'd see, my father at a loss for words. The man who could command boardrooms with a glare couldn't even meet my eyes. "Effective immediately," I continued, flipping through the documents, "we're restructuring the leadership. Mr. Lang will oversee operations until a new director is appointed. Emily, you'll no longer handle the marketing division. Your last campaign lost us 2 major clients." Her mouth dropped open. "You can't just—" "I can," I interrupted quietly. "And I just did." Her eyes burned with tears she tried to hide. "You're doing this for revenge." I exhaled. "No, Emily. Revenge would mean I wanted you to hurt. I just want the company to heal." Dad leaned back, his voice hoarse. "You've changed." I met his gaze. "No. I just stopped apologizing for who I am." After the meeting, I stepped out into the hallway. The employees avoided eye contact, whispering like the air had turned electric. I didn't need to say a word. My presence was enough. Evan was waiting near the elevator, holding 2 coffees. He handed one to me, grinning. "So, how'd the royal family take it?" I laughed quietly, a sound I hadn't made in weeks. "They're still processing the dethroning." He leaned against the wall. "You sure you're okay?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah. For the first time, We walked out together, past the company logo etched in gold across the glass doors. For years, that logo had made me feel small. Now it shimmered under the sunlight like it finally recognized me. As we stepped into the street, I turned back for one last glance. Inside that building sat the people who once dictated my worth. But the difference was clear now. They had titles. I had power. And for the first time in my life, it didn't come from them. It came from me. That night, the same dining table that once echoed with laughter and mockery felt like a courtroom. The chandelier glowed dimly above as my family gathered again. Dad at the head, Mom beside him, Emily across from me. No cameras, no headlines this time. Just us. The silence was heavier than before. The sound of silverware scraping against plates filled the room, each motion awkward, like no one quite knew how to begin. Dad finally spoke, voice low and careful. "You've made your point, Lily." I looked up slowly. "I didn't do it to make a point, Dad. I did it to save what you built before it collapsed." His eyes narrowed. "You think I couldn't handle my own company?" I met his stare. "You were handling it, sure, straight into the ground." Mom reached across the table slightly. "Please, let's not turn this into another fight." I breathed out, steady but calm. "It's not a fight, Mom. It's just the truth. I didn't take Sterling Tech from you out of pride. I took it because it deserved better than being buried under ego." Emily rolled her eyes. "Here we go again, the hero speech. You act like you're some savior." I turned to her. "No, Emily. I'm just someone who stopped waiting for permission to exist." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She looked down at her plate. For the first time, she didn't have a comeback. Dad leaned forward, his tone softer now, almost uncertain. "You've always been different, Lily. I just wanted to toughen you up." I let out a quiet laugh, half bitter, half tired. "You didn't toughen me up, Dad. Life did. The rejections, the silence, the nights I worked till sunrise, those made me strong. You just made me doubt it for a while." He fell silent. The same man who once spoke like every word was gospel now had nothing to defend himself with. Mom's voice broke the tension gently. "You remind me so much of your grandfather," she said softly. "He built everything from nothing too. He'd be proud of you." Something in my chest loosened. For years, I'd craved those words, not from the world, not from headlines, but from her. Dad swallowed hard, his gaze falling to his glass. "I might have been wrong," he admitted quietly. "I underestimated you. I thought I was protecting you from failure." I looked at him for a long moment. "You weren't protecting me, Dad. You were preventing me." He nodded slowly, shame flickering in his eyes. "And you proved me wrong." For a while, no one spoke. The clinking stopped. The tension dissolved into something else, raw honesty. Then, in an unexpected gesture, Dad raised his glass again. His voice trembled. "To Lily. For saving what I couldn't." The air shifted. Mom smiled faintly, eyes glistening. Even Emily hesitated, then lifted her glass too, though her expression was unreadable. I raised mine last. "To family," I said softly, "the kind that teaches us who we don't want to become and who we still can." The glasses touched. No applause. No fake smiles. Just quiet understanding. After dinner, I walked outside. The air was cold but calm, the city lights glowing in the distance. I pulled my coat tighter and exhaled, finally letting the weight go. Evan's text appeared on my phone. "Press conference went great. Investors are thrilled. Proud of you, boss." I smiled, typing back. "Thanks. Tell the team, we're just getting started." As I slipped my phone into my pocket, I looked back through the dining room window one last time. Dad was talking softly to Mom, his shoulders no longer as rigid. Emily glanced at me, then looked away, but not with bitterness. More like reflection. For once, the silence wasn't hostile. It was healing. I walked toward my car, the sound of my heels clicking against the pavement. The world had changed, but so had I. Because power wasn't about money or control. It was about finally standing tall without needing anyone's permission to. And that night, for the first time in my life, I truly did.